priest catches poor boy cleaning the church alone, and what he did next changed lives. Father Michael Sullivan couldn't sleep on that cold June night in Savannah. Worries about the parish finances had kept him awake for hours until a strange noise from Holy Trinity Cathedral caught his attention. It was the sound of light footsteps echoing through the hallway that made him get out of bed. When he reached the church door, the priest froze at what he saw. A thin boy, about 11 years old, was scrubbing the marble floor with trembling hands, his fingers red from the cold and effort. The faint light from the stained glass windows cast dancing shadows around the boy, who worked with a silent dedication that deeply touched the priest's heart. The boy noticed the priest's presence and tried to run, but his weak legs faltered. Father Michael approached slowly, noticing the boy wore threadbare clothes and was barefoot. "You don't have to run, my son," the priest said softly. "What's your name?" "Ethan, sir," the boy replied, his voice barely a whisper. "Please don't turn me in. I'm not doing anything wrong." "But what are you doing here so late, Ethan?" The boy hesitated, his dark eyes reflecting fear and shame. Father Michael noticed he carried an old rag and a small bottle of water. I clean the church every night, Father. It's been about 3 months now. Always before sunrise, so no one sees me." "But why, my son?" Ethan lowered his head, tears beginning to stream down his dirty cheeks. "It's just, my Grandma Ruth is in Mercy Hospital. She got sick, and there's no one left to take care of me. If anyone finds out, they'll take me to the shelter, and I won't be able to visit her anymore." Father Michael felt his heart tighten. The boy continued, his words broken by emotion. "During the day, I sell candy at the traffic light on Main Street, near the town square. With the money, I buy the medicine the hospital doesn't provide for Grandma. But at night I have nowhere to stay. Then I found out I could get in through the back window that doesn't close properly." "And you clean the church in exchange for sleeping here?" "Yeah, Father. I hide in the confessional to sleep. No one uses it at night anyway. And I clean everything real good, I swear. It's not stealing, it's work. My grandma always said you can't take something without giving something in return." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, back to the story. Father Michael stayed silent for a few moments, watching this boy who showed a maturity far beyond his years. The situation was more complicated than he'd first thought. "How long has your grandma been in the hospital, Ethan?" 3 months, Father. She has heart trouble. The doctors said she needs surgery, but it's really expensive. That's why I work so hard to save up the money." The priest felt a lump in his throat. He knew Ruth Reynolds well, a 68-year-old woman who'd attended the church for decades. She was a simple woman who'd raised her grandson on a small pension after her daughter abandoned them years ago. "Ethan, you can't keep living like this. It's dangerous." "I know how to take care of myself, Father. My grandma taught me, and I'm managing to save money. I already have almost $200 put away." The boy's innocence was both touching and heartbreaking. $200 was a drop in the bucket compared to what Ruth's surgery would cost. "Listen, my son. How about if I help you? I can find you a safe place to stay and—" "No," Ethan interrupted with surprising firmness. "I'm sorry, Father, but I don't want charity. My grandma always said we have to work for what we get. If you allow me, I can keep cleaning the church. I can do other tasks too." Father Michael Sullivan was impressed by the boy's dignity. Few adults showed such moral integrity. "All right, Ethan, how about I officially make you a church assistant? You'd receive a small salary and have a safe place to sleep." The boy's eyes sparkled with hope, but soon filled with distrust. "You're serious?" "Completely serious. You've already proven yourself hardworking and responsible. And I can still visit my grandma every day?" "Of course." For a few days, the solution seemed perfect. Ethan devoted himself to church tasks with admirable dedication, always arriving early and leaving late. Father Michael arranged a small room at the back of St. Mary's Parish, and the boy finally slept in a real bed. But the peace didn't last long. During the monthly parish council meeting, Ethan's situation became a heated debate. "Father Michael, with all due respect, this is completely inappropriate," declared Mrs. Margaret Thompson, the council president, a 70-year-old woman known for her strictness. "A child living in the church? What kind of message does that send to the community?" "Mrs. Thompson, the boy is in a difficult situation, and a difficult situation doesn't justify breaking protocols," she interrupted, slamming her folder on the table. "Besides, where are the documents? Parental consent, approval from Child Protective Services." Other council members murmured in agreement. Father Michael tried to explain, but Mrs. Thompson wouldn't listen. "If you don't resolve this by the end of the week, I'll have to report this to the bishop. I can't allow our parish to become an unregulated shelter." Ethan, who was organizing hymn books in the next room, heard the entire discussion. His world crumbled again. That night, heartbroken, he left a note thanking Father Michael and disappeared before dawn. The priest searched desperately for the boy for 2 full days. He checked every corner of town, spoke with shopkeepers, and asked other street kids. Nothing. It was as if Ethan had vanished. It was Mrs. Betty, the market vendor at the central square, who finally gave the priest the lead he needed. "Father, I saw the candy boy last night. He was sleeping at the hospital entrance, wrapped in an old blanket. Poor thing, must be freezing." Father Michael rushed to Mercy Hospital and found Ethan curled up on a waiting room bench, pretending to read an old magazine. "Ethan, thank God I found you." The boy looked up, his eyes red from exhaustion and worry. "Father, I couldn't stay. I'd cause trouble for you. My child, come back to the church. We'll figure this out together." "I can't, Father. I heard what the lady said. She's right. I shouldn't be there. And here, you can't keep sleeping outside the hospital. At least I'm close to Grandma. She got worse yesterday. The doctors said she needs surgery right away, or else..." Ethan's voice broke. He couldn't even say the word he feared most. "Or else what, my child?" "Or else she'll go join Grandpa." Father Michael sat beside the boy and hugged him. Ethan dissolved into tears, all the strength he'd been clinging to slipping away at once. "I don't know what to do anymore, Father. I'm working 3 different jobs now. In the morning, I sell candy. In the afternoon, I help at Mr. Harold's auto repair shop carrying parts. At night, I hand out flyers at Riverside Mall. But the money isn't enough. The surgery costs $8,000. The priest was shocked by the amount. For an 11-year-old boy, saving nickels and dimes, it was impossible. "Ethan, you need to rest. You can't keep working yourself to death. If I stop, my grandma will..." "Your grandma wouldn't want you to destroy yourself for her sake." But Ethan wasn't listening. In the days that followed, Father Michael saw him several times, staggering with exhaustion through the streets, always rushing from one job to another. The boy was wearing himself out, and no argument could make him stop. The situation reached its limit on a Tuesday morning. Father Michael found Ethan passed out at the church door, his small body shaking with fever and exhaustion. The boy had spent the whole night handing out flyers in the rain, and his body simply couldn't take it anymore. The priest carried him inside the church and called a doctor. As Ethan regained consciousness, Father Michael made a decision that would change everything. "Mrs. Thompson, I need to speak with you," he said over the phone, his voice firm and resolute. "Father, I hope you're calling to tell me you've resolved the child situation." "That's exactly it. I want to call an emergency meeting of the council for tonight, and I want Ethan to be present. Father, I won't change my mind because of emotional theatrics. It's not theatrics, Mrs. Thompson. It's about giving the truth a chance to be heard. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. That night, the parish hall was more crowded than usual. Besides the official council members, many parishioners had come, curious about the emergency meeting. Ethan entered with the priest, still pale but determined. Mrs. Thompson looked at him with clear disapproval. "Well, let's keep this meeting brief. We all know what the issue is here." "Actually, Mrs. Thompson, I don't think anyone here truly understands the issue," Father Michael replied. "Ethan, would you like to share your story with everyone?" The boy stood up, his hands trembling slightly, but when he began to speak, his voice came out clear and steady. "My name is Ethan Reynolds. I'm 11 years old, and my grandma Ruth raised me since I was little. She's sick in Mercy Hospital and needs surgery that costs $8,000. A murmur spread through the room. Many knew Mrs. Ruth and were shocked to hear about her condition. I work to save up that money. I sell candy, carry parts at the auto repair shop, hand out flyers, and at night I cleaned the church in exchange for a place to sleep because I don't have a home anymore. Child, that's irregular, Mrs. Thompson interrupted. There are agencies responsible. Excuse me, ma'am, Ethan cut in respectfully. I know there's a shelter, but if I go to the shelter, I won't be able to work to help my grandma, and she's all I have in the world. Father Michael saw tears in the eyes of many present. I brought something to show you, Ethan continued, pulling a small worn notebook from his pocket. Here, I write down everything I owe the church. He opened the notebook and began to read. First night sleeping here, 2 hours of cleaning. Second night, another 2 hours. Third night, 3 hours because I got the confessional dirty with my sneakers. The room fell completely silent. Ethan kept showing the detailed calculations, the mathematical precision with which an 11-year-old boy tried to balance his debt to the church. So far, I've slept 87 nights in the church. That's 215 hours of work. I've already cleaned for 220 hours, so I only owe 5 more. Mrs. Thompson was visibly shaken. Other council members discreetly wiped their eyes. I know you all think I shouldn't be here, Ethan said, closing the notebook. And maybe you're right, but I just want to work to save my grandma. I promise I won't cause trouble for anyone. The silence that followed was broken by an unexpected voice. Mr. Howard Griffin, a businessman known in town for his stinginess, rose from his chair. Young man, how much did you say this surgery costs? $8,000, sir. I'll pay. The room erupted in murmurs of surprise. No one expected that reaction from Mr. Howard. But I'll only accept it as a loan, Ethan said quickly. You can keep track of the amount and I'll pay it back by working. But son, you're just a child. You can't work to pay back $8,000. Then I'll work until I'm an adult and pay it all back properly. The dignity of that boy touched the hearts of everyone present. Mrs. Eleanor, the bakery owner, stood up. I can give him work too. There's always cleaning and organizing to do at the bakery. And I can teach him how to work with plants, said Mrs. Grace, who owned a flower shop. A child with that kind of responsibility deserves all the help he can get. More and more people offered to help, each one respecting the boy's dignity by offering work instead of charity. Father Michael Sullivan watched, moved, as an entire community rallied together. But it was Mrs. Margaret Thompson who caused the biggest surprise of the night. Ethan, she called, her voice trembling. You said your last name is Reynolds? Yes, ma'am. And your grandma is Ruth Reynolds? That's right. Mrs. Margaret turned pale, her hands visibly shaking. My God. Ruth worked in my home for 20 years. She helped raise my children alongside me. The revelation hit the room like a bombshell. Ethan looked at the woman confused. You know my grandma? I do. Mrs. Margaret could barely speak. She was like a second mother to my children. And I let her go when she first got sick 5 years ago. I was afraid it might be contagious. The weight of guilt crushed Mrs. Margaret. She remembered how Ruth had begged to stay, promising to take care of herself, that she needed the job to support her grandson. But she had been firm. Ethan, please forgive me, she said, tears streaming down her face. I didn't know you were Ruth's grandson. If I had known... You didn't do anything wrong to me, Ethan replied sincerely. You were just protecting the church. The boy's generosity in holding no grudge was the final touch in Mrs. Margaret's transformation. I'd like to propose something, she said, addressing the council. Let's create an official program at the parish. Young people in difficult situations can work here in exchange for temporary shelter and support to study. It was a revolutionary proposal, one that would completely change the parish's philosophy. But Ethan surprised her once again. Mrs. Margaret, thank you for the idea, but I don't think it's necessary. What do you mean? You're doing this because you feel sorry for me, but pity doesn't solve anything. What solves things is teaching people to fish, not giving them a fish ready to eat. The wisdom in those words, coming from a child, stunned everyone. "I have a better idea," Ethan continued. "What if I teach other boys like me the values my grandma taught me? Honest work, dignity, never taking anything without giving something in return." "But how would you do that?" "Simple. Every boy I teach can teach another." And so on. It's not an institution, not a program. It's just people helping people with dignity. Ethan's proposal was both simple and revolutionary. It would create a support network based on values, not charity. Father Michael was impressed by the boys' maturity. And how would we start this? "There are already 3 boys sleeping in the town square. I'll talk to them tomorrow, show them how it's possible to work for real instead of just asking for money. The church can be a meeting point, but everyone manages with their own work." The meeting ended with unanimous approval of Ethan's proposal. More than that, it ended with the transformation of hearts and minds that had seemed closed forever. In the following days, Mrs. Ruth underwent surgery successfully. Mr. Howard kept his word and covered all the costs, but Ethan insisted on signing a symbolic payment agreement. He would repay the money in small installments over the years. "But son, it'll take you 20 years to pay this off," said Mr. Howard. "That's okay. My grandma always said a promise made is a sacred debt." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. 3 months later, the transformation in the community was visible. Ethan had kept his promise and started working with other boys living on the streets. But his approach was unique. "Hey guys," he said to a group of 5 boys who gathered at the church every Thursday. "Work isn't a punishment. Work is dignity. When you earn your money honestly, you can look anyone in the eye." The boys, initially skeptical, began to come around as they saw practical results. Ethan helped them find small jobs, taught them how to manage their earnings, and showed them how to present themselves respectfully to potential employers. "First, you prove you're trustworthy," he taught them. "Then you ask for better opportunities." Ethan's informal program caught the attention of nearby towns. Social workers came to learn about his method, but always left impressed by its simplicity and effectiveness. "It's not a scientific method," Ethan explained to a social worker from Augusta. "Just common sense my grandma taught me." Mrs. Ruth, now recovered from surgery, proudly watched her grandson's work. But she had a secret she'd kept for years, one she finally decided to reveal. "Father Michael Sullivan," she said one Sunday afternoon after Mass, "I need to tell you something about Ethan." "Go ahead, Mrs. Ruth." "He's not my blood grandson?" The priest looked at her in surprise. "What do you mean?" "His mother was my foster daughter, a girl I took in when she was 12. At 16, she got pregnant and left after Ethan was born. Said she couldn't be a mother. And you kept him." "Of course. He was my grandson in my heart. But I was always afraid someone would find out and take him from me. That's why I never sought help when I started feeling sick." "Mrs. Ruth, that changes nothing. Ethan is your grandson in every way that matters." "I know, Father, but I wanted you to know the truth. That boy saved me just as much as I saved him." The conversation was interrupted by Ethan's arrival, accompanied by 2 new boys. "Grandma, Father, I want you to meet Tyler and Kevin. They've been living on the streets for 6 months, but they really want to work." The 2 boys, around 12 and 13, looked wary but curious. "Ethan said you give jobs to people who want them," said Tyler, the older one. "Not exactly," Ethan corrected. "We don't give jobs. We teach how to get honest work." "What's the difference?" asked Kevin. "The difference is, when you learn to fish, you'll never go hungry. If someone just gives you the fish, you stay dependent." Father Michael watched in admiration as Ethan echoed Mrs. Ruth's teachings with striking ease. "But there's one rule," Ethan continued. "Whoever learns from us has to teach at least one other person. That way, the knowledge spreads." "What if we can't find a job?" "You will, but you have to be patient and not give up at the first no." In the following months, the network Ethan created grew organically. There was no bureaucracy, forms, or administrative meetings. It was simply people helping people, built on trust and hard work. Mrs. Margaret became one of the movement's biggest supporters. The transformation in her had been complete, from a rigid, judgmental person to someone who saw potential in every child. "Ethan taught me that true charity isn't about giving things," she said in an interview with the local paper. "It's about giving people opportunities to grow." The change in Mrs. Margaret Thompson didn't go unnoticed by her children who lived in New York. They came to visit and were amazed by their mother's transformation. "Mum, you're different," said Richard, her eldest son. "I've learned some important lessons about humility and dignity." "From who?" "From an 11-year-old boy." Richard laughed, thinking his mother was exaggerating. But when he met Ethan and heard his story, he understood perfectly. "Ethan, have you ever thought about studying business when you grow up?" Richard asked. "You have a natural talent for organizing people." "I do want to study, sir, but I don't want to stop working, and I want to study right here so I don't leave my grandma." "What if I told you I know a nearby university that offers full scholarships for working students?" Ethan's eyes lit up with interest. "But can I keep living with my grandma?" "Of course, and you can keep working with the other boys." It was an incredible opportunity, but Ethan didn't answer right away. "Can I think about it?" "Sure, but why the hesitation?" "I promised the boys I'd teach them until everyone could stand on their own. I can't abandon them halfway." Once again, Ethan's integrity impressed everyone. Richard was so moved that he decided to do something unprecedented. "What if I set up a scholarship fund for all the boys in your group? That way, you can study knowing they'll have opportunities too." "You'd do that?" "I would, but on one condition: the program has to keep running. Other boys in tough situations deserve the same chance." Ethan looked at Mrs. Ruth, who smiled proudly. "Grandma, what do you think?" "I think you deserve it, my boy, and I think you'll use this opportunity to help even more people." "Then I accept, but I want to sign a contract saying I'll pay back the scholarship money once I graduate and get a good job." Richard tried to argue it wasn't necessary, but he knew Ethan well enough to see it was pointless. "All right, we'll draw up a contract." A year later, Ethan's story had spread across the region. Journalists came from far and wide to meet the boy who revolutionized social work without spending a single public dollar. But Ethan remained the same humble boy he'd always been. "I didn't revolutionize anything," he said in an interview. "I just did what my grandma taught me: work honestly and help those in need." "But your method is unlike anything we've seen." "It's not a method, it's just common sense. When you teach someone to have dignity, they teach someone else. And so it goes." During the interview, Ethan was interrupted by a new boy who arrived at the church. "Excuse me," the boy said. "I heard you help street kids find work." "We don't help," Ethan replied with a smile. "We teach you to help yourself." "How?" "First, tell me your story. How did you end up on the streets?" The boy, named Brandon, explained he'd lived with his aunt after his parents died, but she kicked him out when she got a new boyfriend. "How old are you?" Ethan asked. 12. "Can you read and write?" "Yes." "Do you want to work honestly or take the easy way out?" "I want to work. There's no easy life on the streets." "Then you're welcome. But there are rules. First, no stealing, no drugs. Second, you have to study. Third, once you're back on your feet, you have to help another boy too." "That's it?" "That's it. Simple as that." The journalist watching the scene was struck by how natural it all felt. "Ethan, how many boys have gone through your program?" "It's not a program, and I don't know the exact number. About 50, maybe." "And how many managed to get off the streets?" "Every single one who truly wanted to." "How can you be sure?" "Because I keep in touch with everyone. Some became bakers, others auto repair shop assistants. Some kept studying. But they all have one thing in common: dignity." After the interview, Ethan was approached by the town mayor, who wanted to formalize the program and include it in municipal public policies. "Mr. Mayor, with all due respect, I don't want this to become a government program." "Why not? It would be a way to expand and help more people." "Because when it becomes a government program, it turns into bureaucracy, and bureaucracy kills the humanity in helping." but you could train others to replicate the method. I can teach anyone who's interested, but it can't become a public employee obligation. It has to come from the heart. The mayor insisted, offering a salary and structure, but Ethan wouldn't budge. His early wisdom made him understand that institutionalizing his work could destroy it. "Look, Mr. Mayor," Ethan finally said, "if you really want to help, make things easier for those who want to work honestly. Reduce the red tape for opening small businesses, create more apprenticeship positions in companies, improve the schools. That's what will make a difference." They were practical and smart suggestions, showing how well Ethan understood the structural problems that created the situation for street kids. 2 years after that first night he was caught cleaning the church, Ethan had become something of a local legend in Savannah, but he didn't see himself that way. "I'm just doing what anyone should do," he'd say whenever someone praised him. Looking out for others. Mrs. Ruth, now fully recovered, watched him with maternal pride as he explained his approach to a group of visitors. "The difference between charity and dignity," Ethan said, "is simple. Charity you give today and tomorrow the person needs it again. Dignity you teach once, and the person carries it for life." One visitor, a university professor from Chicago, asked an interesting question. "Ethan, don't you think there are cases where people really do need charity? Situations where they can't work?" "Of course. Someone's sick, someone very old, someone with a severe disability. That's different. I'm talking about those who can work but don't know how to start. And how do you tell the difference? I talk to them, look them in the eye, ask what they want from life. Those who truly want dignity, you can tell right away. And those who just want to take advantage, they don't stick around long. The program is based on work, remember? Those who don't want to work give up quickly. It was a natural selection based on each person's own will. No moral judgment, just an offer they could accept or refuse." During the conversation, a surprise arrived that moved Ethan deeply. Tyler, one of the first boys he'd helped, was back. But now he wore a clean work uniform and carried a confident smile. "Ethan," Tyler called out when he saw him, "I came to give you some What news?" "I got a permanent job at Mrs. Eleanor's bakery. Now I have a signed contract." Their hug was emotional. Tyler had left the streets a year and a half ago, and seeing his success was the greatest reward Ethan could have. "And there's more," Tyler continued. "I started working with 2 new boys, Jason and Brian. They were sleeping at the bus station." "How's it going?" "Good. Jason already got work at Mr. Harold's auto repair shop, and Brian's helping at Mr. Tony's grocery store." It was proof that the system worked. The boys who received help became multipliers, creating an endless chain of transformation. Father Michael Sullivan, observing the scene, reflected on how much had changed since that early morning 2 years ago. The church was still cleaned every night, but now by a team of young volunteers organized by Ethan. It was no longer a desperate boy trying to earn the right to sleep, but a community working together. "Father," Ethan said, approaching, "can I ask you something?" "Of course, my son." "Do you regret letting me stay in the church that first night?" Father Michael smiled, placing a hand on the boy's shoulder. "Ethan, that was one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life. You taught our entire community the true meaning of Christian charity." "How so?" "You showed that helping someone isn't about doing things for them. It's about giving them the means to do things for themselves." Ethan thought about those words for a moment. "You know, Father, I think my grandma knew that a long time ago. She never gave me anything for free. Always made me work for everything, even when I was little. At the time, I didn't understand why. And now you do? Now I know she was preparing me for life, to be a person of dignity." The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Mrs. Margaret Thompson, accompanied by an unfamiliar woman. "Ethan, I'd like you to meet someone," Mrs. Margaret said. "This is Mrs. Martha from Charleston. She's heard about your work and wants to start something similar in her town." Ethan greeted the woman politely. "Mrs. Martha, first you have to understand this isn't a one-size-fits-all solution. Every place is different." "How so?" "You need to get to know the boys in your town. See what the specific problems are there. What works here might not work there. But the principles are the same." "The principles, yes. Dignity, honest work, teaching instead of handing things out, but the application changes. Mrs. Martha was impressed by the maturity of his answer. Could you come to Charleston to help me get started? Ethan looked at Mrs. Ruth, who nodded with a smile. I can, but only on weekends. During the week, I have school and my work here. Perfect. And how much would you charge for the consultation? Consultation? Ethan laughed. Ma'am, this isn't a business, it's help. I don't charge anything. But you'll lose a day's work. I won't lose anything. I'll gain the chance to help more people. It was typical of Ethan to turn potential profit into an opportunity to serve. Mrs. Martha was so moved that she made a different proposal. What if I sponsor some of your boys here? Pay for a technical course for them. Now that would be great, but they have to choose the course and commit to finishing it, nothing for free, obviously. And so another partnership was born, based on the principles Ethan had learned from Mrs. Ruth. Help that uplifts never diminishes. 3 years after it all began, Ethan was 14 and in his first year of high school, with a full scholarship at a technical school. His dream of studying business was getting closer. But what brought him the most joy was seeing the fruits of what he'd planted. Over 100 boys had passed through the informal program, and most had found steady, honest work. Ethan, Mrs. Ruth said one Sunday afternoon, have you ever stopped to think about how much of a difference you've made in so many lives? I didn't make the difference, Grandma, we did. Me, you, Mrs. Margaret, Father, everyone who helped. But you were the one who started it all. I just planted the seed you placed in me. Others made it grow. It was this humility that impressed people most about Ethan. Even though he was regionally recognized for his work, he never lost his simplicity or thought himself better than anyone. On that particular Sunday, there was a special celebration at the church. Father Michael Sullivan had announced a Thanksgiving Mass for the 4 years of transformation in the community. My brothers and sisters, said the priest during the homily, today we celebrate not a supernatural miracle, but a very human one, the miracle of multiplying dignity. The church was packed. Many of the boys who had been helped by Ethan were there with their families, showing how their lives had changed. When I met Ethan that early morning, I thought I was facing a boy in a tough situation who needed help. I never imagined I was standing before a teacher who would change our understanding of charity. Ethan, sitting in the front row next to Mrs. Ruth, turned red with embarrassment at the praise. Because Ethan taught us that true charity isn't about giving the fish, but teaching how to fish. It's not about solving the problem for someone, but giving them the means to solve it themselves. After the Mass, there was a gathering in the parish hall. That's when the biggest surprise of all happened. A young woman, around 30 years old, timidly approached Ethan and Mrs. Ruth. "Excuse me," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "Are you Ethan and Mrs. Ruth?" "We are," Mrs. Ruth replied, not recognizing the woman. "My name is Heather Reynolds. I'm Ethan's mother." The silence that followed was deafening. Ethan stood frozen, staring at the woman who had abandoned him as a baby. "I know I have no right to be here," Heather continued, tears streaming down her face. "But when I heard his story, when I saw in the newspapers everything he managed to accomplish, I had to come and ask for forgiveness." Mrs. Ruth slowly stood up, studying the woman's face. "Heather, my child, after all this time, Mother Ruth, I know I ruined everything. I know I abandoned my son and don't deserve forgiveness, but I needed you both to know I never stopped thinking about him." Ethan finally found his voice. "Why did you leave?" "Because I was a scared kid who didn't know how to be a mother. Because I thought you would take better care of him than I ever could." "And why didn't you come back sooner?" "Because I was ashamed. Because I thought you'd hate me. And because I became addicted and I didn't want you to see me like that." Heather's brutal honesty shocked everyone. "Are you still using?" Ethan asked directly. "No, I've been clean for 2 years. I'm in treatment and work at a non-profit that helps other addicts." Ethan looked at Mrs. Ruth, whose eyes were filled with tears. "Grandma, what do you think?" "I think everyone deserves a second chance, my boy, especially when they've had the courage to change their life. Ethan fell silent for a moment, processing everything. Finally, he stood up and looked straight at Heather. I won't lie and say it didn't hurt. Growing up without a mother is hard, but my grandma taught me not to hold grudges. Ethan, let me finish. You can be part of my life again, but there are conditions. What conditions? First, you can never disappear without warning again. Second, if you ever relapse, you tell me. You don't vanish. Third, you have to learn about all the work we do here, and if you want, you can help. Heather nodded vigorously. I accept all the conditions. And one more thing. Mrs. Ruth is still my grandma. She raised me and made me who I am. That will never change. I don't want to take anyone's place. I just want a chance to know the incredible man my son has become. It was the beginning of a slow and careful reconciliation. Heather started attending St. Mary's Church, learned about Ethan's work, and eventually became a valuable volunteer, especially helping homeless girls. Her painful experience with drugs made her particularly effective at identifying young people in similar situations and offering them the right support. It's funny, she told Ethan a few months later, how our worst mistakes can become our best tools for helping others. Grandma always said guard right straight with crooked lines, Ethan replied. Your grandma is a wise woman. Our grandma, Ethan corrected with a smile. The correction deeply moved Heather, who realized she had truly been welcomed back into the family. End of story. So, what did you think of this story of transformation? Ethan managed to change not only his own life, but also that of an entire community through the dignity of work. Should more people follow this example? Tell us in the comments where you're watching from and what touched you most in this story. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss other heartwarming stories.